This is the Thursday, July 22nd edition of the Dark Illumination Report Podcast Extra. Should you speak out publicly about your religious beliefs or should you keep them private? We'll be discussing that and more on today's episode.
This is a Dark Illumination Report Extra with RJ Womack.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining me for another episode of the podcast. Glad you're here. Hope you're doing well. And today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about should you be public about your beliefs or should you keep them private? I gave some people the impression that I don't particularly care for people that are private about their religious beliefs. I tend to believe that people should be public in their beliefs, and that's just simply not true. My issue comes from people who tend to have an issue with telling their spouse or their partner. My particular belief is that if you can't even tell your partner, the person you're supposed to love, supposed to care about, and you don't even believe in it enough to stand up for it with them, how can you possibly truly believe in it to start with? And secondly, what does that say about your relationship? I can't tell you how many times over the years I've received email from men who tell me, particularly men who tell me, I believe in Satan, but my wife doesn't know about it. And I just decided not to tell her, so what should I do about it? And my thing is, if you don't believe your wife or your husband or whoever can face the fact that you're a diabolist, then you probably shouldn't be a diabolist, or you probably should get rid of that person. And I understand some of their argument that I've been married a long time and we've been married 30, 40 years and I don't really want to start my life over. And I get that. And I would never recommend that somebody destroy their entire marriage overnight after 40 years of marriage, but still at the same time, it seems to indicate that there are some issues there that you need to deal with. And I just don't understand why there are so many people that seem to think it's a good idea to keep something like your religious beliefs secret from your spouse. Other than that, I generally think that people should be as public about their religious beliefs as they think is appropriate. It depends on what you're trying to do as well. If you're trying to get career advancement, if you're trying to achieve something in your career, it might be in your best interest not to bring up the fact that you're a Satanist. And a long time ago, I would have said something different, but my views have changed. If I had a choice, I probably would have gotten my tattoos in different places than I did because I would have been able to hide them better than I have been able to. I think it affects your ability to advance in your career at times, depending on how elaborate your tattoos are, depending on how public you are. But again, it depends on what you're trying to do. And if you're young, I would recommend that you really take some time to think about that. Because once you get those tattoos and once you make that decision to get certain things, it's going to be hard to erase that. And you're always going to have to deal with that. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Satan. I think Satan's very practical. I think if we want to have a voice in society, we have to make sure that we're presentable, that we try to create an image that is positive for our religion. And sometimes getting inappropriate tattoos doesn't help advance our cause. So if you're going to be a public figure, if you're going to be someone on television or try to become a public figure for diabolism or for Satanism, it might be a good idea to think about that. And I realize when you're young, you make decisions and then you rethink them later. I don't regret getting my tattoos, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't have gotten them. I probably would have gotten them in different locations so that it would have been better for me as a public figure to hide them when I wanted to, just simply because it just makes you look more professional if you're not tatted up. So that's kind of my thought process. But again, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're just a private citizen and you don't anticipate ever wanting to be public, then maybe it doesn't matter. But if you think there's going to come a time when you want to be public about your religion and you want to be a spokesman for your religion, it might be in your best interest to think about your appearance and think about your presentation. It's very important because once you make that decision, you can't change it, as I said. And I think that's something that everybody should think about. But in general, I think you should do whatever you feel is appropriate for you as an individual. I've always been public about my Satanism. In fact, you can't even search my name without it being associated with Satanism. That's how public I am about my Satanism. And I've always been that way. When I was in school, I was public about my Satanism. When I was at university, I was public about my Satanism. I've always been public about my Satanism. I've never hidden it from anyone, ever. And so that's just the way it works. For me personally, that's the choice I made. And I couldn't go back on it now if I wanted to, because everybody associates my name with Satanism that knows me. It's just the way it is. In fact, when I was in high school, I was called Devil Boy. Anyway, that about wraps it up for today, guys. Hope to see you next time on the next episode. Remember to tell somebody if you like what we're doing here and you support our mission. Take care. May Satan be with you. See you next time. Later.
Thank you for listening to the Dark Illumination Report podcast. For the latest news headlines, show information, and more, go to rjwomack.com. That's rjwomack.com.